Hello Year 4, it's Mr. Isit here and welcome back to Year 4 Science. This term we are going to be starting a new topic, and that topic is going to be all about the human body. Obviously this term is going to be slightly different, however we are going to carry on and make sure that we learn as much science as we possibly can, and while we're learning that science it's going to be as fun as it possibly can, with lots of home experiments for you to get your hands dirty with. As you can see on your screen, today's topic is all about the digestive system. So what you need to do is get yourself a new piece of paper, write down the title at the above, which is the digestive system, and also write today's date. Once you've managed to write the title and the date, I'd like you to look at the screen again and you will see a new slide, and that slide is the following. We have a list of some key words that are going to be coming up in today's lesson. Now I've started us off with two, the digestive system and digestion, and I'd like you now to have a good 30 seconds to think about in your heads any other words that you can think of that are associated with the digestive system. So what I'd like you to do is pause the YouTube video now and give yourselves 30 seconds to think of some of those words. Now that you've had some time to think, I'm going to now put up some of those words that you may have thought of. You may have thought of any of the following. You may have mentioned the word mouth, the teeth, your stomach, the esophagus, saliva, intestines, maybe small or the large. And even more scientific, you may have mentioned the word colon, the rectum, the anus, peristalsis, liver, pancreas, or maybe even feces. So what exactly is the digestive system? Well, the digestive system fundamentally is how we get from this, which is our lovely food that we eat, all the way to our feces, which is what we remove from our body after we have eaten. So today in our lesson we are going to be discovering the journey that food takes from when it enters our body until we remove it as a waste product. On the screen right now you can see a lovely diagram of the digestive system, and this is a diagram which shows all the main organs that are used in the process of digesting and releasing food from our bodies. Now, if you follow my mouse cursor, which should be in yellow, you'll be able to see that this is the journey that the food takes. It enters our mouths and comes down the esophagus, where the food then enters into the stomach. From the stomach, the food then enters what is called the small intestines, and these are the coiled tubes that run all the way down the body. Now, these tubes are extremely long, and the food eventually, after passing through the small intestines, eventually reaches the large intestines. It's here where the food takes, again, another long journey, all the way through the large intestines before it reaches the rectum at the bottom. So what we are going to do now is we are going to be taking some notes on the different parts of the digestive system. So what I'd like you to do is, with your piece of paper which has your title and your date on it already, I would now like you to write a subheading called the mouth. And then what you need to do, and because there is a pencil symbol in the bottom corner, this is a slide that means we need to take some notes. So we are going to be taking notes on the mouth. Now, underneath your subheading, which you've written called the mouth, I would like you to write down the notes that are in the red writing. Okay? Anything that's written in black is just extra information, so you don't need to write that down. Now, the mouth is a really important part of the digestive system. The mouth contains our teeth, and it's these teeth that are used to chew the food and break it into smaller pieces. We need it in smaller pieces so we can then swallow it. Now, the tongue helps to swallow by pushing the food to the back of our mouths so we are able to swallow it. At the same time, the salivary glands secrete saliva to moisten the food before it is swallowed. This saliva also contains enzymes. Now we want the food to be nice and moist so that it is easy to swallow and that we don't choke on it. The saliva, as I said, also contains enzymes, and it's these enzymes that also help to break the food into smaller pieces. So what I suggest you do now is you pause the video just so you can give yourself some time to write down the notes that are written in red. Next up, we have the esophagus. So again, you can write a subheading called esophagus, and then you can write down the notes that are written in red. The esophagus is pretty much roughly 20 centimeters long in an adult. Okay, now the esophagus or food pipe joins the mouth and the stomach together. So when you swallow, the food obviously travels down what you would know as your throat, but the scientific word for that pipe that joins your mouth to your stomach is called the esophagus. Now, the food here is actually squeezed along this tube into the stomach in a motion called peristalsis. Now, peristalsis is one of those keywords that was mentioned earlier. And just to the left-hand side of the diagram at the bottom of the page, there is a kind of small diagram showing you what peristalsis is. And it's the pushing or squeezing of the tube above where the food is to help push it down towards your stomach. It's very much like how snakes eat their prey. Again, it's at this point I suggest you pause this video so you have some time to write down the sentences that are in red on the right hand side of your screen over here. So we have covered the mouth and we have also covered the esophagus. So next up we have the stomach. Now the stomach is a bag of acid. It is made up of strong muscles that contract to break your food into even smaller parts. The acid in the stomach and special chemicals called enzymes break down the food even more. Now, again, I suggest you pause the video just so you can give yourself some time to write down the writing that is in red. So the stomach is a bag of acid. It is made up of strong muscles that contract to break your food into smaller parts. Once the food has gone into the stomach and the acid and muscles have broken it down, it then passes into the small intestine. Now, the small intestine is 6 to 7 meters long. That is extremely long. If you think that you might only be just over a meter tall, okay, in a grown adult, there are 6 to 7 meters of small intestines present. Now, these are possible due to the fact that it's all coiled up and kind of squished together inside your abdomen or the center of your body. Okay, but it is in the small intestine that the broken down food is then passed into the blood so the rest of your body can use it. Now you might be thinking, what does our body use our food for? And fundamentally and primarily, the reason we need all our food is to get energy. Okay, our body needs energy for an abundance of different reasons, but this is the process by which our bodies receive most of its energy. It's when the food is absorbed into the blood so the rest of our body can use it. Now, some nice extra information about the small intestines is the fact that the lining of these intestine walls have finger-like projections called villi. Now, these finger-like projections are like microscopic hairs, and these increase the surface area so we can absorb as much nutrients as possible. And it's these nutrients that pass from the food into the bloodstream across the walls so we can get as much energy as possible. Again, this is the prime time for you to pause the video now so you can write down the 2 sentences on the top right hand side of your screen that are present where my cursor is right now. After the small intestine, we have the large intestine. Now, strange that it's called the large intestine, despite the fact that it's actually shorter, only 1.5 meters long compared to the 6 to 7 meters long, but it is much wider and thicker, hence why it's actually called the large intestine. Now, the large intestine accepts what the small intestines don't absorb. So a lot of the food and nutrients are absorbed in the small intestines, but anything that isn't absorbed then passes into the large intestines. And it's in the large intestine that the body now absorbs a lot of the water back from digested food. So all the material that passes into the large intestine is very dry. So water is added back into that dry food to try and loosen it and soften it slightly. These bits of food then pass through the large intestines and eventually reach the rectum. And the rectum is where it is basically stored in a short term, which holds the feces before it is then expelled from the body. So again, this is now the perfect time for you to pause the video again, so you can write down the first sentence, which says the large intestines is about 1.5 meters long, and that in the large intestine, the body absorbs a lot of water back from the digested food. And finally, at the end of the digestive system, the leftover stuff that the body can't use leaves the body through the anus when you go to the toilet in the form of feces, or in non-scientific terms, this is when you go for a poo. Now, in addition to the organs that I have talked about and that you've written notes about, there are some others that are also part of the path of digestion, but not in specific detail to do with the path of food. But they still play a critical role. And the following are something that I'm going to quickly talk about now. And these are the liver, the gallbladder, and the pancreas. You don't need to worry about writing anything down. You just need to listen to this part. So, the liver. The liver directly affects digestion by producing something called bile. Bile helps to digest fat. It also helps to filter out toxins and waste products like drugs, alcohol, and poison. So the liver is really important. The gallbladder. The gallbladder stores bile from the liver and then releases it into the small intestine. Fatty diets can cause something called gallstones, which are deposits in the gallbladder that can be quite painful. But again, we don't need to really worry about that right now. And finally, we have the pancreas. The pancreas produces digestive enzymes to digest fats, carbohydrates, and proteins. It also is really important in the regulation of blood sugar by producing insulin. Now, those of you might know something about diabetes, and obviously the pancreas plays a crucial role in diabetes. But again, that's something that we will look at in future lessons. So don't worry about that too much now. Now it's time for a worksheet. This is what the worksheet looks like that you're going to be completing, and I've put this on Microsoft Teams for you to be able to access. There is a link to it in the instructions for your lesson. All you need to do is print it off and label the different parts of the digestive system. This PowerPoint that I've been talking over that you've just seen on YouTube is also on Microsoft Teams, so you can use it to help you if you need to. If you don't have a printer at home or can't print the worksheet, then instead on the piece of paper that you've been working, you can simply write the different colours and then write the name of each coloured organ next to it. Once you have completed the worksheet, you have done all the work for today's lesson. Your teacher will go through the answers with you shortly. Thank you very much for listening and watching. I will see you all soon.